All right, guys, I actually decided that, just in case we run out of time with presentations tomorrow, I wanted to make sure you have a very good understanding of what is going into the pig cadaver lab write-up presentation. And again, just kind of walking you through really what the goal of this project was, because this will be the last thing you'll submit by Sunday. And that's it, you're done for the semester, right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and just walk through this. Okay, so first thing is first, you're going to see this very shortly. I'm still building this, so of course, this will be where you will submit your final report. Again, notice that everything we're walking through, including the video that will be posted below here, you have the lab write-up worksheet that you utilize to be able to collect your field data. Maybe you want a fresh copy because you've kind of written in there and you want to transfer some of that data information. That's why it's available. Again, it also gives you a lot of the background information and materials and methods and things like that that you will need to put into the presentation. And I've also got a copy of the backbone outline ready to go, packed and played for you to be able to adjust accordingly based on, again, what is inside of that presentation saying this is what needs to go here. So this will be available to you after this video is made. But again, this is where you can find a copy of the things that we're going to discuss. So the very first thing I want to walk through again is just sort of the overview of what we've done, right? So remember, this was supplementation for fingerprint analysis. I unfortunately just had a lot of things moving and shaking this semester that pulled me away from being able to do the lab. But with that being said, I wanted to still make sure that we could gain those points and really give an opportunity for you guys to get out into the field, so to speak, and do some exploration. So the first thing you want to do is, again, just get a refresher of what the goal of this project was. This was a lab report, and it was meaning for you to do some criminal investigation, right? So really what you are acting as if you're coming across homicide sites, right? Or you're coming across dead bodies, so to speak, at two different time points, right? So we went through really the third exam, which really kind of focused in on entomology. It focused in on how we can utilize different time points of succession across a body for animals that are attracted to or moving away from or even accidentally associated with dead bodies. But because we are not, we're working in tandem with Dr. LaRusso's group and they're doing physical research, they don't want the pig to go running away, right? Because if we didn't stake it down, if we didn't put it into those physical containers, it's a treat. Something would have come along and probably dismembered it, taken it and ran off, and then they're losing their access to the microbial research that they're trying to collect. So with that, we're just focusing in on entomology, right? We're just focusing in on the insects that we can find over the different days and different parts of the decomposition process. So really the first thing that you want to keep in mind here, it's not a continuity experiment, right? You're kind of going on and putting your detective hat on as if you were coming to two different bodies, right? Because the first day that we all went out together, that was really in the fresh stage, really in kind of the first 24, 48 hours that the pigs were even placed out. And even from then, you were seeing a lot of activity, right? You guys took a bunch of pictures. You had 3 different sites that you looked at for comparative analysis. That's what we would do in research, right? We would have, we would try to create that N value. So we would want to have multiple different sites or multiple different samples within a given region to see how things change even within that little short distance that we could see the pig cadavers were placed apart. So that's kind of a big thing we want to remember here is that, right, in forensic investigations, we wouldn't just leave the body behind and kind of come back and do the reporting. You really are looking at 2 different time points, and that will make sense, especially with a lot of the questions I'm getting around the weather reporting. So go back through the background information, All of the things that you will need to talk about is kind of the introductory part of what you will need for your lab write-up presentation will be really here, right? It's really kind of walking you through what the expectations are, what the methods are going to be. And then we have, of course, this printout that you guys were using to data collect. That's exactly what a field researcher or a criminal investigator would do, right? These are sort of very basic questions, but they would be logging everything. And that's exactly what this was meant to do. It was meant to be a practice of that type of experience. So site visit 1, we all went out collectively. We all were all there to be able to data collect. You should have the date, you should have the time you went out and the time that you left. Right, noting the general conditions of things. You're going to kind of collect all of this. As I mentioned that day, most weather data apps are going to have everything that you had available. And if not, this is where you guys are going to have to put your research hats on. Go out and Google search this information, right? We are absolutely keeping weather records very extensively at this point for lots of different reasons, not only for meteorology and making sure that we can study data trends of weather changes over time. But this is the information that our forensic investigators would also utilize if they are coming across a body, right? So this is sort of site visit 1 and body 1, right? So you're going to provide all that information. And here again, you should have been making notes. Where was the location on campus? How many bodies did you observe? What was the sort of general arrangement? What time of day? Was there noise? Was it overcast? Anything that you wanted to make note of should be put in here. And those are literally just the field notes that, again, you're scribbling and writing, but then you're going to kind of put into actualization in the lab report presentation. So here is what is, I think, causing confusion for students. Now, if I'm a forensic investigator and I'm going out to a site, right? I'm discovering that body in real time. And by the time we are done, right, collecting all the information and making sure we have snapped every picture, making sure we have sampled every piece of tissue, collected every insect, right? We're not going to leave the body out there. We wouldn't do that. We would bring the body with us back to the morgue for toxicology reporting, for, trying to identify wounding, trying to see any sort of things that we could collect forensically on the body then with inside of the safety of the lab environment, right? So with that being said, your day 1, right? Your day 0 is the day that you went out. But really then after I remove a body and I don't leave it there, again, because if I'm looking at entomological succession, I'm trying to understand maybe what took place to enhance state of decay, right? Because you're going to make a guess at some point of what stage you think the body was in. You're going to use day 0 as being the day we went out, and then you're going to look at the weather data for the 7 days prior to you going out, right? Because those are the things that would have affected you being there at that moment in time. And again, the understanding would be we would take the body back to the lab and process it. We wouldn't care about what the weather was doing from there on out. We would hope that we've data collected everything, took as many pictures, but then I've got to go back into the record books and see how could weather have affected succession rates, blowfly entry? Was it too hot, too cold? Did we have a lot of rain? Was there sunshine? What, again, thinking about some of the soil characteristics, plants. So you are utilizing the day you went out as 0, and then you're counting the prior day as 1 and the 7 days prior, and you're going to record that. And again, this is going to take a Google search. You're literally just putting that information in as it relates to the weather data tracking that we've done for, decades now. And again, I'm giving you a clean version of this document because you took it out in the field and you were writing on yours. You want to be able to put all your information in, make your collective notes inside of this Word document so it's nice and tight. You don't want to be giving me a picture of it. I'm giving you a fresh one. You should be filling this one in, right? minimizing the text, making sure it fits, and then that's a data table you'll be putting into your physical presentation under your results section. Then you're going to go and, again, the point of this was you were taking a ton of pictures. You were doing some species observations. There were probably lots of things creeping and crawling around there. But really what you were doing is you were making a guess. You were noting the location. You were taking a guesstimation of, again, possible stage. But remember, wherever you were observing that species, that's going to be where did you locate it on the body, and making a guesstimation of where that species is on the body and what stage you think potentially that location is going through as far as decomposition. Because remember, decomposition can happen at different rates across the body, right? Head, maybe decomposing at a different rate than gut, than feet, right? And again, that's where you're keeping all of the information on this in alignment to the species you're observing, right? I noticed a bunch of maggots. Okay, that's a species observation. You're going to make a guess as to what you probably think that is, knowing the rates of succession that we learned in class. You're going to know where you took that picture, right? And then you're going to tell me what the stage of decomposition is on the body where you found that species. Then you're going to simply make a guess. Is it in the larval stage, right? I'm not expecting you to know the different instars, but again, you should at least be able to say, is it a full adult versus a larva that's wiggling around, right? Basic observations. Then you're just simply taking notes here. Was there a feeding mass? Did it look like there was competition? Did you even observe predation, right? Because we know that there are species that just are accidentally kind of associated with the body because they're feeding on the other things that are there. They're not interested in the body at all, but in the end, they're going to affect the rates of how much we see and possibly even decomposition itself. The last would have been what you should have gone home and done at home based on, right? I've got a field guide for you here. You should be able to just simply click on it and you have access to it. You should be able to go and kind of, identify the different species that are native to Texas. You also can reverse Google search. If the forensic specialists in the field are doing that, right, as just sort of a first pass note, do the same. That's absolutely what I expect you to do. I want you to be resourceful in going out and finding this information. So now coming down to here, right, for this data table might be broken up a lot because maybe by the time you put this together, you might want to add an additional column to where you're putting your little picture that you took, right, as an additional column here, or maybe here, right? You would add in another column and just simply say, picture of species observed. And again, if I want to be able to see it, you're not going to put this you're going to adjust these parameters. So when we get to the presentation, this is going to make more sense. Okay. And then that's day one. That's body one. You're going to make your final observations. Anything else that was out of the ordinary, anything you want to state over pig site number 1, pig site number 2, or pig site number 3, right? Anything that you want to make note of. And then you were to go back and do this again on your own as if you were coming to, again, a whole new body, right? Because we would have taken that from this first data collection, we would have taken that body with us back to the lab. So now you're going back out, right? And you're like observing body number 2. And again, this, if we had a body farm, right? And again, this is sort of a thing that I'm kind of test casing with you guys to see if maybe going forward, where there will be Dr. LaRusso's group that's doing a pig all on its own, maybe it's something that we can look at as just tacking onto, but we just let that pig sit out all semester as if we were kind of at a body farm where you would be data collecting throughout the different dates and reason or different stages of decomposition to see how things have changed. But for our purposes here, I want you to think it's like I'm a forensic investigator and I'm going on a brand new adventure seeing a whole new body. So you're just going to repeat the same information, right? But that doesn't change what the context of the lab's goal was. You were to practice being an entomology, a forensic entomology investigator, right? That was the point of this lab. So I've got this here for you. I've got it available as a blank, space for you to be able to fill in your information on this Word document and then adjust and make it look nice so that you can just easily move it over into your presentation. So let's look at the expectations for that now. So this is ready to go for you. As you'll see when we go through it, I literally put in there step by step by step what each part needs to entail, what each slide should have. Because again, this is something new for you. I have to make sure I've given you the correct directions. So as we move through, right, think of this slide as kind of the abstract. When you pick up a research paper, you're just reading the top little paragraph and it's telling you what's the goal of this paper. And not only what a brief little background of what, forensic entomology does and blah, blah, blah. Then by the time you're done by the abstract, you are taking away exactly what the results were. You're taking away exactly what the findings were. You're getting a very quick snapshot in time of what the goal of the paper that you're about to read is going to describe and walk us through step by step on. So that's what should go here, right? And again, if you click on these are all movable, right? You don't have to, let me see, they should be movable. Maybe that one isn't. Maybe it's just the background that is. Okay, well, in subsequent ones, you can move around some of these images. So now go back to the kind of background beginning that I kind of gave you as an introduction. I am not wanting you to copy and paste what I wrote for you. That was my introduction to forensic entomology and what we've done in the course. Now you're kind of repackaging what I've presented there or kind of going out on your own. And again, if I pick up a research paper, the first thing I'm doing is understanding what is this field? What am I about to really take a deep dive on? Well, if I'm going to really talk to you about the data I collected, I have to give the reader an introduction as to what forensic entomology is. What's the goal of it, right? This is generalized information put in accordingly. Now you're going to tell me about what the goal of this project is, right? What is the goal of this particular research as it relates to forensic entomology, right? Forensic entomology, big broad categorization, lots of things we could discuss there. But how do we use it in forensic investigations? And boom, that sets me up to say, I'm using this background information of what this field is to be able to do research in that field specifically for this project, right? Then you're going to give me kind of a, what is the real big goal here? What is the main things you're hoping to take away as it relates to this lab, right? It's kind of a last bit summary. Then what you're going to do is, here's the thing. Tell me about, right, forensic entomology. We know that beetles and flies are really important to forensic entomology. So now I need to know, what do we know about the native species of flies and beetles that most likely I'm going to deal with because I'm in Texas, right? So I set up the key context. We use flies and beetles broadly in forensic entomology. That helps me to be able to do this research. Here are the goals of what I'm hoping to take away in this research. And now I have to give you a little bit of some background of just kind of like, what are some of the species I know I'm going to observe? And again, read through this. I'm giving you, get creative. It can be a table, it can be pictures, it can be a succession model. Go back to the book, go back to the PowerPoint slides, see how information was presented, right? There's a timeline. That kind of shows you the different stages of decay and what comes there. Well, now you're getting specific to what is unique to Texas. Methodology. Very simple, very straightforward. And again, I have had individuals ask me, how is the lab different than the methodology? Well, the lab here was a little bit uniquely different, right? You weren't at a bench, you weren't inside of a lab, you were really out in the field. So maybe you want to tell me a little bit about what that was. Maybe you want to give me a map of school. Maybe you want to drop pins to show the location, right? Or again, remember I said at the very end when we were out there, take pictures of what you're looking at. Take pictures of the location. Where are you at in relevance to the school? Where are you in relevance to the construction? Where are you in relevance on that trail, the gazebo, right? And again, maybe a map that helps to identify the different 1, 2, and 3s. So again, the lab here is a little bit unique. It's not simply just a sterile environment that we're traditionally used to, right? So now we're in the results. This would be exactly what you would have done in a lab write-up anyway, right? This may take several slides. This is not a one and done. But now what you're going back to is all of that information you collectively put together in those data tables for that worksheet. Remember, you want to help guide the reader. So the results guide me. Body 1, visit 1, right? Whatever you want to do, put all the information in. That body 1 visit may take 4 slides because you want to make sure the tables are nice and big. You're continuing them. Make sure you label your data tables. If you're putting charts or graphs or anything, XY axis labeling. Again, this is all stuff that should be in a generalized lab report anyway. I'm just giving you it as a presentation so you have more room to work with rather than pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of a write-up, right? Again, I would maybe in this point hold off the species observed known until maybe you get to the data analysis section, but it's your choice. You are the guide, you are the person that is walking me through this lab report. So however you choose to put that information in, you've just got to guide me through it, right? So after you do the results, right? Again, results for body 1, all that information, results for 2, all that information, pictures, things. And maybe you're going to other resources and you're using them to support what you have found. That's great. You can put that in there. You've just got to give credit to those citations, right? So here is again, maybe you're confirming stages of decay where they were found, that you were able to, correctly identify for each site visit, right? Succession. This is open. There's no real right or wrong way here. It's just making sure that it's not just sloppily strewn about. Guide me. As long as you're providing a guide for me of what I'm looking at and what you physically found from this, because again, goal is to be a forensic entomologist and correctly identify species that helps to correctly identify potential stage of decay. That's what we're doing in this class, right? But this is the tool that we're using specifically is entomology. So now you're walking me through, what did you find? What, were you right? Were you wrong? What is the data analysis of the actual species observed? Then conclusions of the findings. Now you're going to tie me up with a bow. The goal of this was to X, Y, and Z, because forensic entomology is something we utilize to help calculate the PMI. You're going to walk me, from my findings. And again, I've given you some nice bullet points here. These are just things to consider. You may use them and you may need multiple slides for this information. That is perfectly okay. You need to walk me through so that I take away exactly what you've told me, right? You were going to do and what the objectives were. And again, that's based on serving the hat of being a forensic entomologist, right? This is what you're doing, right? This was the goal of this. So now come all the way back. Now you're telling me, did you meet those objectives? Did you do them correctly? Did you see any major differences between these two site visits? How do you think these things affected what you found? Right? It's just like any other paper. You're telling me what I should be walking away with. The last thing I just love, because this is something that I'm hoping going forward, because some of the feedback I've gotten on some of the exam questions, for the last question, of course, I know lab is the most fun part of this course. So I'm trying to think through, did we like this? Did we not like this? What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy? What would you maybe like to have seen differently? Any feedback here? There's no right or wrong answer. Think of this as free points. Finally, references. All of this needs to be in APA citation format. And then this is just a page where you can kind of click on some of these images if you want to use them. You don't have to, but that's it. You can modify this however you need, right? You won't be giving that presentation, so you can just take that out. And you can take out the website too. So that's the goal of this. The goal is to take what you have done for your blood splatter analysis and just transform it into a presentation, because it's a skill set you're going to need when you go out there anyway. You're going to have to work on something either as a team or a project, or you're going to be, working on a report for your job, and then you're going to have to provide that. You may actually have to physically stand up and give a quarterly analysis, right? Or something. All I'm doing here is stretching those skills just a little bit more so that you feel comfortable, and you may even pull back on like, oh yeah, this is kind of like the lab report again. I've just got to figure out a way to guide my audience to what I want them to take away from this, right? So whether the medium is I'm making my audience pick up a paper and read it and have takeaways, or I'm giving a presentation for takeaways, or again, maybe you're at a conference and now you've written the paper, you've done the presentation, but you have to be able to regurgitate your findings really quickly because you want to collaborate with somebody. These are all just skills that you're building to ensure that when you step into your job, your career, you can kind of navigate between these different mediums appropriately. So I end there. I want you to, review this. I'm going to post this right now. I will make sure to note this for you guys in class as well on Wednesday for our last round of presentations. But, you've got the rest of the weekend to put this together. I'm sure most of you have been kind of thinking about it, but I just want to make sure you have this video to go back to. Stop, play, forward, backwards as many times as you need to kind of listen to it. Okay, I am done. I digress. Thank you, and I will see you guys in class.